Welcome back to The Grind for a quick guide on Mike's Revenge. Now we're going to take a look at this first fight to explain the global node here, which is Bane, because one of the main factors in this quest is dealing with the Bane transfers, because once you hit the opponent for the first time, there's going to be a degeneration passive applied to him. If you get hit, it will be transferred to you, or when that timer expires, it will switch over to you. So you're going to want to time it so that you are hitting the opponent when that switch happens. That way you will not take any damage, because especially when the opponent has close to full health, the degen does so much damage, and it is relative to how much health you or the opponent has. So if you are full health, if you heal yourself up for every fight, the degen will deal more damage. But if you only do a little revive, the degen won't be doing quite as much damage because you're at lower health. And you can see as I take chip damage and take some blocked hits, the degen damage goes down. And as we slowly chip away at the opponent's health, if we do take a couple ticks of degen on us, the damage isn't quite as much as we get the opponent closer to 0 health. So you do have a little bit more of a buffer when you are closer to killing the opponent, but at the very start of the fight when the opponent has full health, the degen ticks so hard, and it can really bring you down fast if you're stuck in a situation where you have to bait out a special attack, but they won't throw it. So you usually don't want to push the opponent to 2 bars of power, especially if it's a champion like Venom that has a nasty special 2. You want to barely push them over a bar of power. That way, if they don't throw their special and you have to hit the opponent to transfer the degen, you can do that without pushing them past 2 or 3 bars of power, depending on what the situation is. Now here you see, after parrying him, I didn't attack right away because I wanted to kill a little bit of time before I attacked in to make sure that I could transfer the Bane during that combo, rather than finish the combo before Bane transferred to me and then have to worry about getting an in on the opponent again. You can also try to manipulate the AI a little bit so that you prevent them from throwing a special attack until shortly before the Bane is about to transfer. That way, after you counter the special attack, you'll transfer the Bane over. Now, here's a situation where I got kind of stuck out where Bane transferred to me, but thankfully it wasn't dealing that much damage because he was almost dead. Now, the easy path that I've seen many people do and that I feel has the easiest opponents is to come over here to Angela and then down to Venom. And the opponents are all fairly easy to deal with, and the nodes you don't really even have to worry about. So you take teleport E up over here to Angela, and then I took the route that goes up to Gwenpool, because Gwenpool you can easily dex both special 1 and special 2, whereas with Falcon you're going to have to take blocked hits if he throws his special 1. The next opponent is Angela, and with Angela, every time she throws a special attack, she's going to apply armor breaks, which is a way that if you have willpower, you can slowly start to gain some health back and mitigate some of the chip damage, so that's very nice. And Angela's special 1 is fairly quick, but it is a little bit longer than many of the other opponents on the path. And so you're going to want to make sure that you're baiting the special attacks early enough that you don't get stuck with the degen ticking on you the entire time she's throwing her special animations. And I stuck to baiting the special 1s just so I had a lot more easy ins without having to worry about parrying to get my ins. And sometimes you can use the specials to buy you a little bit of extra time so that one of your hits will hit after Bane is transferred over to you. But because the special 1 with Cyclops is so quick, it can be hard to do it with the special 1, whereas the special 2, you can throw that and it still lasts a couple seconds, so that can help with Bane transfers if you need to. Now, I preferred using white Cyclops because I felt like his armor breaks were easier to trigger and lasted longer, so I was able to benefit from the additional damage from those armor breaks, which was a bit different than this red Cyclops. But you can bring both, and you can even bring the 2-star ones if you want. Just make sure that you're not accidentally reviving the 2-star versions, because that's going to be a waste of a revive. So you may just not want to bring them along at all. Now, the next fight, as we mentioned, is Gwenpool, and again, she has very easy to evade and quick special attacks, so again, she's a fairly easy fight. You just want to continue to focus on the strategies to work on the Bane transfers as easy as possible. Some tips can be attacking into the block when they don't have power for a special attack, and then holding heavy very briefly. When they go to throw a heavy attack, you dash back, and then you can counter for some free ins without having to parry. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the recording for the Venom fight. Venom is a little bit annoying annoying because he's very aggressive and sometimes doesn't throw his special attack. So that's something to beware of, and you really don't want to push him to a special 2. So you want to barely push him over 1 bar of power and then try to bait it out. And if the Bane starts to go to the end, then you still have a bit of a buffer to attack him. Now the Voodoo Fight, he does regen at the start, so you ideally want to solo him, but you could see at the start of that clip, I was able to out damage the regen. So if you do have to revive, it's not the end of the world. Now, Black Widow is another one of the annoying fights. We are skipping over several of them because they're very straightforward. The problem with Black Widow is you can't rely 100% on parries. And if the parry fails, you're taking lots of block damage, and that can be fairly punishing, especially with the 3-star health pools. So you want to be cautious of that and try to avoid having to parry as much as possible, and use this strategy to attack into the block, hold your block briefly, baiting a heavy attack, and then dashing back before the heavy attack hits you. Another thing that is challenging with Black Widow is her special attack animations are on the lengthier side, so it does take a little bit of time for it to complete and allow you to counter. Another thing that can be problematic is if Black Widow evades, it is a low chance to evade, which means you're not really counting on it happening, and so if it does happen, it catches you off guard and can again be very punishing. And in that end of that clip there, I was playing pretty rushed because I had Bane on me, and it did end up killing me, especially after she evaded. Now Daredevil is a fairly straightforward fight. The special attack animations are brief, so it's easy to get the transfers off of those special attack counters. The one thing that you have to keep in mind is that Daredevil Classic can fully evade projectiles. So your special 1 will not hit him unless he is parry stunned. So if you're going to throw the special 1, you need to make sure you parry him first. The special 2 will hit the contact hits, but the beam part will still miss. He'll evade it. So you want to be cautious about throwing that. Otherwise, he could counter you and very likely kill you. Now, if you are going to throw the special 1, as I mentioned, you can parry and then throw the special 1 while he is stunned so that you will deal the damage. But that relies on you taking parry block damage. So another thing that you could do is just build up to your special 3 and either throw it off for damage or save 3 bars of power for a scenario where Bane transfers to you and you need to throw the special 3 in order to transfer it back to Daredevil, which can be very helpful in certain situations if the opponent is playing passive or if you just can't seem to get an in because they don't have enough power to bait out a special attack. So that is another option for you to use if you're finding some of these fights difficult with the Bane transfer. Now, the last fight before the Collector is Spider-Gwen, and Spider-Gwen has a high chance to evade, so you're probably going to want to play it on the safer side and only do at most 4-hit combos and don't end in a medium attack. But the more safe option is going to be to do most of your attacks with the parry stun active. So just do a parry medium, light, medium for the most part. The problem is with the Bane transfer being somewhat tedious in time, you have to really line it up well, and if you end up in a tight situation where you have to throw a special attack in order to transfer Bane and Spider-Gwen is not stunned, there's a chance she's going to be evading the hits. So I would recommend healing up for this fight especially so that you're able to take a lot of block damage and land as many parries as you need in order to safely get your hits in. And you can bait out whichever special attack you're most comfortable with, but I definitely would recommend relying on parry for the majority of your hits. Now we're going to move on to the Collector. Now, this is going to be a somewhat annoying fight depending on your expectations. You are not going to be able to work him down in a handful of revives. Very likely it's going to take you 20 to 40 even revives to finish off the Collector, maybe even more. And I didn't keep close track, but I think it took me about 30 to 30-ish or so. And that's because his special attacks are pretty much impossible to evade fully. And what you can do is heal up fully, and then you can push him to a special 2 and take some block damage and hopefully survive 1 or 2 SP2s in the block. Or you can just kind of like throw on the degen and then dance around just like that. But that only works if you're healing up to full, because as you can see, now that I have less health, the degen is doing less damage. Now, if I still had full health, I probably would have survived taking these blocked hits from that special 2 and could have done some more damage. So that is something that you can consider healing up full. I primarily went in with just the revive health, and my goal was just to chip away as much as I could with that little bit of health, getting off 1 or 2 special ones or just a special 2 or something. And some strategies to stay alive longer are to hold block after 4 hits in the combo, because that will prevent him from throwing a special attack sometimes and encourage him to throw a heavy attack, and that can give you another in on the opponent. So here we stop and hold block, and sometimes you can take some blocked hits to bait out a heavy and stop your combo, as I just showed here, with 4 hits and then hold block to bait out a heavy, so you can prevent him from throwing his special attacks and try to get more hits in. So once again, you can hit into his block even, hold block very briefly to encourage him to throw a heavy, and that can give you another in so that you can get some more hits and some more special attacks and prevent him from throwing his special attacks to get that little bit of extra damage out of every revive that you use. And this is going to be more and more important as you get into the fight, because his special attacks will become unblockable, so you won't be able to even rely on taking the blocked hits. Now, sometimes he will trigger a regen, and you could just quit out. I found that you would relatively break even if you tried to stay in the fight and potentially even still take off some health. I think I still got 1 or 2% down on this fight, even though I did let the full regen go out, because it doesn't really regen him that much overall. So then pretty soon into the fight, or about halfway in, he starts to get the unblockable specials. So we're going to see here, even though I've healed up pretty high and getting some decent degen damage and I could survive some blocked hits, his special attacks are now unblockable, and so it makes the fight a little bit more frustrating, but it's going to get even more frustrating. At some point, he will become unstoppable as well. Something to keep in mind is the timing of the unstoppable is exactly when you need to transfer Bane. So you're going to have to parry, but he has tenacity, so you can't rely on the parry. So you have 2 ways to work around this. You can just do as much damage as possible, throw off a special 1, see if you can get an intercept, and try to get as much damage as possible before he goes unstoppable. Or what you can do is you can delay that first hit a little bit and kind of waste a little bit of time. And then shortly into the fight, put the degen on him, and that will allow the timing to be offset. So now you don't have to hit him while he's unstoppable. And then the Bane transfer will be shortly after. Unfortunately, I messed up the timing there, and my combo didn't work out. But that is an option for you to do if you want to play around the unstoppable. I ended up just doing more the route of getting as much damage in as possible, about 3 to 4, sometimes 5% if I got lucky with crits. And I would just kind of rush it and see if I could land some intercepts, bait some heavies really quick, and just get as much damage on him as possible with that first Bane cycle before he became unstoppable. So for the majority of this fight, you just have to accept that you're going to use revives, and the main thing that is helpful is learning to bait heavy attacks without taking blocked hits and stopping your combo before the last hit so you can hold block briefly to discourage him from throwing his special attacks and encourage him to throw a heavy attack so you can get another in, get some more hits off, and your special attacks in before he kills you with his special attacks. So I hope that this video is helpful. Let me know what your thoughts are and what your experience has been. Check out my playlist for other Carina's challenge guides, and I hope to see you in the next video.